The sky above Cyprutine did not fall, it burned. For 10,000 years we Turians looked up at the silver clouds of Palaven, and we saw a shield, a canopy of reflective dust protecting our home from the harsh glare of our star. But when the Reapers arrived, that shield became our furnace. My name is Centurion Vaelen Curtas of the 26th Infantry Division. I am writing this on a damaged datapad. In the ruins of a subterranean transit station deep beneath the capital, the air down here tastes of copper, pulverized concrete, and the distinct metallic sting of dextroamino blood if you are receiving this transmission. It means the Citadel has not yet fallen. It means there is still a galaxy left to fight for. Listen closely. This is how Palaven fought, and this is how it bled. Our military manuals taught us everything. We knew how to break a Krogan charge. We knew how to outmaneuver an Asari vanguard. We had doctrines for orbital blockades, planetary defense grids, and asymmetric urban warfare. But there is no doctrine for a god. It began on a Tuesday. The sensors at the edge of the Trebia system didn't register a fleet. They registered an anomaly, a mass shadow so immense the navigation computers flagged it as a system error. Then the comms went silent. Not just static, a clean, deliberate silence, like a hand reaching out and snuffing a candle. My platoon was stationed at Outpost Victor, on the high ridges overlooking the capital city of Cyprutine. From there you could see the entire valley, the towering spires of our civilization, gleaming like polished silver in the afternoon light. And then they broke through the atmosphere. They did not drop pods. They did not fire orbital strikes. They simply descended. The dreadnoughts, colossal, cuttlefish-shaped shadows of dark, ancient metal. They ignored our anti-orbital batteries. Our mass accelerator cannons fired shots that could tear a mountain apart, and the rounds simply flattened against their kinetic barriers. I watched the HFS Invictus, a dreadnought of our own fleet, the pride of the 9th Flotilla, get torn in half. Not by a laser, not by a missile, but by a red, concentrated beam of pure, molten energy. It sliced through the Invictus like a heated blade through ice. Within 3 hours, the sky was no longer silver. It was a bruised, bleeding purple, choked with the ash of our burning armada. The streets below became a labyrinth of fire. Cyprutine, the jewel of the hierarchy, was being systematically dismantled by giants. The shockwaves from orbital impacts rattled our teeth, and the constant hum of static on our comm channels became our only companion. Turian discipline is a strange thing. When a human faces annihilation, they scream, they scramble, they let panic guide their limbs. But a Turian, we fall back on the hierarchy. We look to the officer above us. If that officer is dead, we look to the next. If they are all dead, we look to the nearest soldier and we ask, what are our orders? But on day 3 of the invasion, there were no orders. The command grid was shattered. Primarch Fedorian was gone. General Corinthus was trying to rally the defense from a mobile command vehicle, but the Reapers were jamming everything. My platoon was cut off on the ridge. We had 48 soldiers, mostly young recruits. Fresh from their initial training cycles on Mene, their mandibles were twitching, a sign of deep instinctual fear. I looked at them, and I realized I was the highest-ranking officer left within 10 kilometers. I stepped onto the parapet looking down at their young, terrified faces. They weren't soldiers yet, they were children wrapped in Cabal-grade armor, but they had the discipline of our people running through their veins. Listen up, I told them. My voice sounded hollow through my helmet's comlink. We are the 26th. Our symbol is the mountain, and today, we do not move. They didn't cheer, they didn't shout, they just checked their thermal clips, they adjusted their kinetic shields. And then the ground began to shake. It wasn't artillery, it was the Reapers' infantry. They took our own people, they took the Turians they captured in the outer suburbs, and they changed them. The Marauders, we call them. They still have our height, our metallic plates, but their faces are gone, replaced by glowing synthetic visors, their flesh fused with cybernetic cables, their arms melted into assault rifles. They marched toward us, in perfect, silent unison. Alongside them were the husks, the hollowed-out shells of humans shrieking, crawling, throwing themselves onto our defensive barriers. They were a tide of flesh and wire, climbing the jagged cliffs of Victor Ridge with clawed hands and desperate, empty eyes. "Fire!" I roared. The ridge exploded in blue light, the hum of 48 Matic rifles firing in semi-automatic unison. The sound is like metal tearing metal, a beautiful, deadly rhythm. For 3 hours we held that ridge. We piled the bodies of the husks so high they formed a secondary wall, but the Reapers, they do not feel pain, they do not have morale to break, they do not care how many of their foot soldiers we kill. And then, the destroyer arrived. The sky grew dark as the massive machine descended, its colossal bulk blotting out our star. We had no air support. The skies belonged entirely to the Reapers now, overhead. Massive, leathery beasts known as harvesters circled the ridges, screeching as they dropped blue spheres of raw plasma onto our fortified positions. "Take cover," I yelled, but my words were swallowed by the sound of an explosion. To my left, Corporal Berinus was thrown into the air, his shields shattered, his armor scorched. He didn't rise, we were being squeezed. From above and below, on the ground, the marauders advanced. Using tactical precision that mirrored our own training, they moved in fire teams, laying down suppressing fire with their integrated weapons, while the husks rushed our flanks. I fired, targeting a marauder leading the charge. My Matic barked 3 times, the 3-round burst shattered its synthetic visor, and it fell, but another immediately stepped forward to take its place. They had no fear, they had no hesitation. To fight an enemy that used your own tactics, your own fallen brothers, it chips away at a soldier's soul. I saw faces I recognized among the monsters. Soldiers from the 3rd Division who had been stationed at the valley gates now marched as mindless cybernetic puppets. Their dead synthetic eyes stared back at us, completely devoid of the proud spirit they once possessed. "Hold the line," I commanded, though my own heart felt heavy with a growing, cold dread. "Do not look at their faces. Look at your sights." We fought with everything we had. Our heavy weapons specialist, a veteran named Joran, fired his heavy missile launcher, detonating a cluster of marauders, but for everyone we destroyed, 10 more crawled up the jagged cliffs. The heat was becoming unbearable. The atmospheric dust, superheated by orbital lasers, began to rain down as molten, red glass. It hissed against our armor, melting our kinetic shield emitters. And then, the earth split open. Have you ever heard the sound a Reaper makes when it lands? It is not a mechanical whir. It is a howl, a deep, vibrating bass that rattles the plates of your skull. A sound that makes your teeth ache and your chest thrum with terror. A 100-meter destroyer dropped from the clouds, landing directly in the valley below our ridge. Its single, glowing red eye focused on our position. Our rifles did nothing. Our heavy rockets detonated harmlessly against its armored hide. It fired, a beam of red light sweeping across our ridge. The heat was instantaneous. It melted the stone beneath our boots. I was thrown backward by the shockwave, my kinetic shields shattering in a burst of blue sparks. When I opened my eyes, the ridge was gone. My platoon, the brave, silent youths of the 26th, were ashes. Fused into the molten rock of Palaven, only 5 of us survived. We crawled into the drainage pipes, dragging our wounded, descending into the dark, beneath the burning city. For days we walked in the pitch black. The water in the pipes was warm, tasting of rust and chemical runoff. We had no contact with the outside world, save for the deep, rhythmic vibrations of the Reaper drills working far above us. That was 3 weeks ago. Since then, we have lived in the dark. We are the ghosts of Cyprtine. We raid Reaper supply lines. We sabotage their processing centers, the horrible, towering structures where they gather our citizens to turn them into more monsters. My group has grown. We are no longer just Turians. We have a human alliance Marine, a lieutenant named Mitchell. He was separated from his unit during the initial drop. We have an Asari commando, and even a Salarian engineer who was on Palaven for a joint research project. In the dark, the old boundaries of the galaxy don't exist anymore. We share our rations. We tend to each other's wounds. We speak of our homes in whispered voices, so the Reaper's patrols don't hear us. Last night, Mitchell told me about a place on Earth, a city called Vancouver. He talked about the water, how it looks when the sun sets, not silver like Palaven, but golden. I told him about the mountain valleys of my youth, the high, crisp air, the way our home star, Trebia, would catch the metallic dust in the atmosphere, turning the entire world into a shining, polished mirror. We both smiled. And then we went back to cleaning our weapons, because we both know we will likely never see those skies again. 2 days ago, our Salarian engineer Joran picked up a coded transmission. It wasn't from the High Command. It was a distress call from an automated medical outpost in Sector 7. There are survivors, Joran told us, his large eyes blinking rapidly in the dim light of our subterranean hideout. Dozens of them, mostly civilians. But they are trapped. The Reapers are moving a processing unit into their block. We didn't hesitate. It went against every tactical doctrine to leave our secure hiding spot, but we are soldiers. Our duty is not to survive. Our duty is to protect. We navigated the old maintenance tunnels, moving like shadows beneath the ruins. When we emerged into the ruins of Sector 7, the sight broke our hearts. The grand plazas of Ciprian, once filled with bustling markets and beautiful fountains, were now desolate gray graveyards. Giant, metallic pillars harvested from our buildings stood like jagged teeth against the sky. And there, hovering in the center of the plaza, was a Reaper harvester. It was loading civilians into a massive, glowing cage. "We need a distraction," Mitchell whispered, adjusting his human assault rifle. "If I draw their fire, you can get the civilians out through the maintenance hatch." "No," I replied, placing a hand on his shoulder. "We move together, we fire, we strike, and we fade like the mountain wind." The battle was chaotic. The Asari commando Tilara unleashed a wave of raw biotic energy, throwing several husks into the air in a brilliant flare of blue light. Mitchell fired with deadly human precision, picking off marauders from behind a collapsed pillar. Joran bypassed the security locks on the transport cages, releasing the terrified civilians. We fought like a single organism, representing 4 different worlds. United by a single purpose, we managed to save 30 civilians, guiding them down into the safety of our tunnels. But the victory was short-lived. The Reapers, they do not lose tracks. They followed our scent, and now they have found our home. To understand why we ran toward the danger, you have to understand what Palaven represents to us. To a Turian, the state is not a collection of buildings or a government. It is a promise. It is the understanding that your life belongs to the community, and in exchange, the community will guard your memory with absolute honor. When we saw those transport cages, we didn't see strategic liabilities. We saw our sacred promise being torn apart. The tunnels below Sector 7 were tighter than the main transit lines. The air was thick with the smell of scorched polymer and old, stagnant water. We led the survivors in a silent single file. The children did not cry. Turian children are taught from their first cycles to quiet their breathing when an officer commands it. It is a chilling sight to see a 6-year-old look at you with wide, stoic eyes, completely understanding that their survival depends on their absolute silence. Mitchell walked at the rear of the column, his rifle raised, his steps light. I watched him through the dim green hue of my tactical visor. Humans are fragile compared to us. They lack our thick plates, and their skeletons crack under pressures we shrug off. Yet there is a strange, liquid grace to how they fight when backed into a corner. They do not fight for a grand hierarchy, they fight for each other. It is a different kind of discipline, but on Palaven, it proved just as unbreakable. We reached the secondary junction, a massive hub where 5 different sewage conduits converged. The concrete walls were cracked, dripping with pale, glowing algae that cast long, sickly shadows across the floor. This was our designated checkpoint. Joran set up his portable terminal on a rusted power crate, his fingers flying across the holographic interface as he tried to scan the levels above us. "The patrol patterns have changed," Joran whispered, his throat sac expanding and contracting with tension. "They are no longer searching randomly. They have established a grid. They are sweeping the subterranean layers with seismic pulses. If we stay here, they will pin us against the structural foundations within an hour." Lara, our Asari commando, leaned against a mossy pillar, her biotic barriers glowing a faint, comforting blue. "We can't take 30 civilians through the primary sewer lines. The pipes are too narrow, and the gas buildup is toxic to non-armored lungs. We have to go up. We have to break through the commercial district of Sector 9. The commercial district of Sector 9 was once Cypratine's crown jewel. A place of towering glass domes, floating gardens, and high-end cafes where diplomats from the Citadel would meet to discuss trade. Now, it was a desolate canyon of shattered glass and blackened steel. The glass dome had collapsed, scattering millions of razor-sharp fragments across the plazas like a frozen, sparkling sea. We emerged through a ventilation shaft behind a ruined department store. The smell of burning upholstery and melted plastic was overwhelming. We kept the civilians crouched in the shadows of a collapsed display wall, their gray skin blending perfectly with the concrete dust. Above us, the sky was a deep, angry crimson, slashed by the orange vapor trails of high-altitude fighter jets trying in vain to pierce the orbital fleet. "Movement," Mitchell muttered through the squad channel, pointing his scope toward a shattered sky bridge 300 meters away. "3 marauders, 2 of them have heavy sniper rifles. They've set up an overwatch position on the plaza exit." Lara closed her eyes, taking a deep, slow breath. "I can mask our movement with a biotic field, but only for a short distance. It won't hide us from their thermal sensors. We need to disable those snipers before we move the group." "I will take the left," I said, sliding a fresh thermal clip into my sniper rifle. "Mitchell, you take the right. Lara, if anything goes wrong, you drop a barrier and get the civilians back down the shaft." We nodded to each other. In that moment, we weren't different species. We were a single mechanism of war. The wind was howling through the empty streets, carrying the distant, low rumbling of a Reaper dreadnought. I adjusted my scope, accounting for the heat distortion rising from the burning ruins. The marauder's face was a grotesque fusion of bone and blue cybernetics. It didn't blink, it didn't move. It was a perfect, tireless machine of death. 3, 2, 1, fire," Mitchell whispered. 2 muffled shots echoed through the ruins. Through my scope, I saw the marauder on the left collapse, its head snapping back as the high-velocity round shattered its cybernetic core. Beside it, the second marauder spun, its rifle raised, but Mitchell's shot was already on target. It tumbled off the edge of the sky bridge, crashing onto the shattered glass below with a dull, metallic clang. "Clear," I signaled. "Move them out, fast." The civilians bolted across the plaza, their steps hurried but silent. We guided them into the skeletal ruins of a transit terminal. The station's electronic directory was still flickering, trying to display train schedules that would never run again. We were halfway through the terminal when the air grew cold. A heavy, musky scent filled the air, a smell that made the hairs on my neck stand up. It was the scent of raw, rotting meat and ozone. Then we heard it. A deep, wet thudding sound, followed by the screech of tearing metal. "Brute," Mitchell hissed, diving behind a ticket terminal. Out of the shadows of the main train tunnel, a massive, horrific shape emerged. It was a mountain of mutated flesh, a nightmare stitched together from the bodies of a Turian and a Krogan. Its massive arms ended in jagged, armored plates, and its face was a warped mask of bone and glowing red implants. The beast roared, a sound that shook the dust from the ceiling. It caught the scent of the survivors and charged, its massive boots shattering the stone floor with every stride. It was moving with terrifying speed, a bulldozer of muscle and malice heading straight for the civilian group. "Hold your ground," I screamed, popping out of cover to fire my Matic. The rounds hit its armored hide, sparking against the synthetic plates but doing nothing to slow its momentum. It was less than 20 meters from the lead survivors. Lara leaped into its path, her hands outstretched. A massive wave of blue biotic energy erupted from her fingers, slamming into the brute's chest. The impact was loud, like a thunderclap, and it forced the beast to its knees, its clawed hands scraping the ground as it struggled against the gravity-altering field. "Mitchell, now!" she gasped, her face pale with the effort of holding the massive creature. Mitchell didn't hesitate. He pulled a heavy Carnifex pistol from his holster, aiming directly at the exposed, fleshy joint behind the brute's shoulder. He fired 3 times in rapid succession. The heavy rounds tore through the muscle, severing the nerve endings. The brute howled in agony, its massive arm going limp, but it wasn't finished. With its remaining arm, it swung a colossal blow, smashing through Tilara's biotic barrier and throwing her across the station floor. She hit the wall hard, her biotic glow flickering and dying out. I ran forward, pulling my Omniblade. The orange, hard-light blade hissed to life, glowing with intense heat. I jumped onto the beast's back, driving the blade deep into the cybernetic harness fused to its spine. The smell of burning flesh and melting circuitry filled my visor. The brute thrashed, trying to shake me off. It slammed its body against a concrete pillar, the impact cracking my armor and knocking the air from my lungs. But I held on, twisting the blade, pouring raw thermal energy into its core. With a final, shuddering groan, the massive beast collapsed, its red implants fading into darkness. I fell off its back, gasping for air. Mitchell was already at Tilara's side, applying Medigel to her wounds. She was alive, but her breathing was shallow. "The spine is intact," Mitchell said, his voice tense but steady. "But she can't walk. We need to carry her." We didn't have time to rest. The roar of the brute had undoubtedly alerted every Reaper patrol in the sector. I lifted Tilara onto my shoulders, her weight surprisingly light. "Joran, lead the way," I ordered. "We need to get back underground. Now." We retreated deeper than we had ever gone, descending into the old seismic stabilization vaults beneath the city. These were massive, cavernous chambers designed to absorb the tectonic shifts of Palaven's active crust. They were cold, damp, and completely isolated from the surface world. We set up a temporary camp in a utility room. We had no heater, so we sat in a circle around a single, glowing chemical lantern. The survivors huddled together in the corners, wrapped in survival blankets, sharing what little clean water we had left. Tilara lay on a cot, her face still pale but her eyes open. The Medigel had stabilized her, but she would be out of the fight for several days. "Thank you, Centurion," she whispered, her hand resting on her side. "That was a very human move you made." I managed a dry chuckle. "Do not let the military council hear you say that. They prefer to think we are entirely logical." Mitchell sat nearby, cleaning his rifle with a piece of cloth. He looked tired. The strain of fighting a war on an alien world was starting to show in the deep lines around his eyes. "It's the same war, Vaelen," Mitchell said, without looking up from his weapon. "Earth is burning just like Palaven. London, Vancouver, San Francisco, all of them. The Reapers don't care about our treaties or our borders, they just want us gone." "I know," I replied. "It is easy to forget that we are not the only ones suffering. When your own sky is on fire, you tend to close your eyes to the rest of the galaxy." I looked at Joran, who was quietly repairing his Omnitool. "Joran, what are our chances of contacting the fleet?" The Salarian sighed, a soft, whistling sound. "Low, Centurion, very low. The Reapers have established a total orbital blockade. The electromagnetic interference from their dreadnoughts is choking the entire spectrum. Even if we had a military-grade transmitter, the signal would be scrambled before it left the atmosphere." "Then we keep fighting down here," Mitchell said, snapping the thermal clip back into his rifle with a sharp metallic click. "As long as we're breathing, we make them pay for every foot of concrete. That's the deal." I looked at the survivors. A young Turian mother was holding her child, singing a soft, traditional military lullaby. It was a song about the mountains of Cyprutine, about the eternal vigil of the stars. In the quiet of the vault, her voice sounded incredibly beautiful, a fragile thread of hope holding back the dark. "You are right, Mitchell," I said softly, leaning my head against the cold concrete wall. "That is the deal." But the quiet did not last. 6 hours ago, the ground began to vibrate again. This time, it wasn't the distant rumble of battle on the surface. It was a steady, rhythmic grinding sound coming from directly above us. The Reapers had deployed tectonic drills. They were boring through the seismic vaults, systematically purging the subterranean layers of any remaining resistance. They knew we were here. Our small rescue mission in Sector 7 had left a trail, and now they were coming to finish us. They are through the first security bulkhead, Joran reported, his voice tight. The drill will reach this chamber in less than 20 minutes. Behind it, there will be husks, dozens of them. Maybe more. I stood up, checking my Matic rifle one last time. My kinetic shields were only at 60% and my thermal clips were dangerously low. I had 40 rounds left, 40 shots to defend 30 lives. Mitchell, take the civilians and head down the southern service tunnel, I ordered. It leads to the old drainage system. It's a tight squeeze, but it should be out of range of their sensors. And what about you? Mitchell asked, his eyes locked onto mine. You can't hold them off alone, Vaelen. Even with your armor, you'll be overrun in minutes. I won't be alone, Joran said, stepping forward. He had a standard-issue Predator pistol in his hand, his fingers trembling slightly but his grip firm. I am a Salarian. We are not known for our frontline defense, but I can manipulate the vault's environmental controls. I can flood the corridor with toxic gas once the civilians are safe. I looked at the Salarian, seeing the absolute resolve in his large eyes. It will trap you here, Joran, I said softly. It is logical, Centurion, he replied with a faint, sad smile. My life for 30 of yours, the math is simple. Besides, I have always wanted to see how a Turian fights up close. Mitchell looked at us both, then nodded slowly. He knew there was no room for argument. In war, sometimes the only choice you have is who dies so that others might live. He turned to the survivors, ushering them toward the southern tunnel. Go, I told him, and Mitchell, if you make it back to Earth, tell them we held the line. The human gave a crisp, solemn military salute. I will, Vaelen. Semper Fi, he disappeared into the dark tunnel, guiding the silent column of survivors behind him. Now, it is just Joran and me. We are standing in the main control room of the vault. The concrete ceiling is cracking, dust and small pebbles raining down on us as the grinding sound of the Reaper drill grows louder and louder. I have set this datapad to transmit on an automated loop using Joran's booster antenna. I don't know if anyone will ever hear it. I don't know if the galaxy we knew will even exist when this war is over. But if you are listening, know this: we did not surrender. We did not falter. We stood our ground in the dark and we fought with our last breath. This is Centurion Vaelen Curtas of the 26th Infantry signing off. May the spirits guide you back to the light. Transmission terminated.